Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I am Noelle. I'm a content creator that lives in Chicago. I recently purchased my first condo, so today I'm going to be talking about my must-haves list when touring and looking for condos. A little backstory is I was living in a condo that I was renting, and my landlord decided to sell her property while I was still living there, so I had about 3 months left on my lease, and I asked to renew my lease, and she said that she had decided to sell the property. So my first option was to actually buy the condo from her. For moving purposes, that would have been very nice because she was selling all of the furniture with it, and I would have been able to just stay put and I didn't actually have to move out of anywhere. So that would have been really convenient. But while she was putting pricing and everything together for me, I decided to tour a couple other units just so that I could get an idea of what was on the market, if it was a good deal, whatever number she came back to me with, if that was going to be a good deal and something that I should consider, or if I should be looking elsewhere. And I just wanted to see what else was in the market for the area I was looking in my budget and what I could get the best bang for my buck. At the end of the day, this was going to be an investment, so I wanted to make sure that I was buying a property that would have been a good investment. In total, I ended up touring 7 different condos, and I had the 8th option of staying in the condo that I was currently living in, which, if you guys remember, it was a beautiful, stunning location. I loved the building. I loved the staff that worked at the building. It was my first apartment that I ever lived in alone, and I absolutely loved living in it, so it was a really good option and was going to be hard to compete with when I was looking at other condos. So I had a few things that were on my must-haves list and then my would-be-nice list that were obviously not deal breakers, but things that I would just look for if I could have everything that I wanted in a condo. Starting with my must-haves list. The unit that I was currently living in back when I started touring was a 1-bedroom, and it was around 800 square feet. So I definitely wanted to either stay in a 1-bedroom or upgrade to a 1-bed plus den or a 2-bedroom. If I was going to look for a 1-bed plus den, I was going to continue living alone. If I was going to look for a 2-bedroom, I probably would have had a friend move in with me for the 2nd bedroom, at least for a little while, because I would have been spending a lot more money on a 2-bedroom than a 1-bedroom. So that was kind of where my mind is with that. I did not want to look at any studios. I just felt like after living in a 1-bedroom, I couldn't downgrade in size. If I was going to do that and stay in the same size place, I probably would have just stayed in my current apartment. So studios were not an option. Convertibles or junior 1-beds, whatever else you want to call those, were also not an option. I wanted to make sure that I was upgrading in space. If I was going to buy a property, obviously I'd be living there for a few years, so I wanted to make sure that it was something that I could grow into. Something that I didn't know about before I started touring was a 2-pipe versus a 4-pipe building. A lot of the buildings that I looked at were actually industrial lofts. It was the style of condo that I was going for and the style that I ended up in. And in a lot of these older buildings, they are 2-pipe buildings. The way that that was described to me was the building can either turn on heating or on air conditioning. And once that's turned on for the season, so like in the winter, they'll turn the heating on, and you can control how hot your apartment gets, but you can't turn the air conditioning on in the winter. So the building's controlling if the heat or the AC is on, and you can control the temperature, where in a 4-pipe building, each unit can control whatever their air is in the unit. Another non-negotiable for me was the location of the property. I wanted to stay within a few block radius, which obviously brings my options down significantly, but I really liked where I was living and I wanted to stay in that area. And it was also really important to me to be in walking distance to grocery stores, to doctors, to restaurants and bars, and to my Pilates studio, to my gym. I didn't want to have to change any of the stuff that I was doing on a regular basis. I still go to the same grocery store. I have all the same options. I can go to the same Pilates studio because I wanted to make sure that I stayed in the same area so that I wouldn't have to kind of uproot and then all of a sudden have to find all new places and my usual places to go to because I don't have a car. So it's important to me that all those things, especially like grocery store and my Pilates studio or whatever gym that I was going to at the time, I wanted to make sure that was all walking distance to where I was going to be living. With the nature of my job, I get sent a lot of packages and a lot of mail, so one thing on my must-haves list was I wanted to make sure that my building had a doorman or security of some sort. I wanted to make sure that there was actual staff working on property. A lot of the buildings I toured didn't actually have any staff working on property. You would walk in and there was no lobby, there was no place to like walk in. When you first walked in, you kind of just walked right into the units. So if they were getting packages or whatever, a lot of them would just have like a little nook in the hallway, or just the packages would be thrown in the hallway. And with the amount of packages I get, and because it's normally not stuff that I order, it's stuff that people are sending me for work, I wanted to make sure that there was some sort of staff that would actually keep the packages for me. My last place had a doorman and an Amazon locker, so all my packages would get put in the Amazon locker. My current place has 24-hour doorman and security, which are separate, so there's security constantly walking around. The doormen have like cameras in every single hallway, and they keep the packages in a locked room for us, so if I want my packages, I have to go ask and sign the packages out, which I really, really like. Most of the places that I looked didn't have that, which was a deal breaker for me. Now, when you're buying a condo, there's a high chance you're gonna have HOA fees, and when you're touring, asking what the HOA fees are going to be is a necessity, because they most likely will go up every year, so the number that you're getting right now, like I signed at the end of last year, my HOA fees already went up. So depending on obviously what your budget is, but for me, if the HOA fees were going to be high, I wanted to make sure that I was actually getting amenities for the HOA fees. So some of the buildings that I was touring, say, just for example, this is not like an accurate information, but if they were $300 a month for HOA fees, and they didn't have a gym, they didn't have a doorman, they didn't have any staff on site, but they had high HOA fees, that didn't make sense to me. If the building had high HOA fees, I wanted to make sure that I was actually getting amenities and physical things that I was paying for. I do know that the HOA fees cover like building maintenance and stuff like that, but some of these buildings have ridiculously high HOA fees. I wanted to make sure that if they were going to be high, that I was actually getting some benefit from it, not just the building maintenance part of it. I wanted a place that was move-in ready. Obviously, I could do a few cosmetic things. In this unit, I did end up painting, but I didn't want to move into a place that would have to be redone, because I don't have the time, I don't have the knowledge, and I don't live in the same state as family or people who would be able to help me with a project like that, and I don't think I could do it on my own, so I knew I'd be hiring that out, which just makes it all more expensive, and I'd have to be living in the unit while doing all those things, and I wanted just to be able to move in and obviously furnish the place and do the projects that I am capable of doing on my own. My mom did come out and help me paint everything white, which was really, really nice of her, but all in all, I wanted a place that was move-in ready. There was a few that I looked at, like the floors had to be redone, or the kitchen would have to be updated or stuff like that, and I just didn't want to take on a project like that. Something that is really big in industrial loft buildings is the soundproofing. So I did tour a couple buildings where, because these units are just converted from a very old warehouse building, a lot of the ceilings and walls aren't soundproof. You can hear everything. My realtor actually lives in a loft building as well, and he said when he first moved in, you could hear his upstairs neighbor's alarm go off in the morning. Like, that's how bad the noise was. So I wanted to make sure that if I was going to be in a unit, that I spent some time in it. I went from a very, very quiet unit. My last unit was on the top floor, so obviously there was no one above me. I will say I can occasionally hear my neighbor that lives above me when she's wearing high heels, and my next door neighbor when he's blasting music, but that's basically all. I can't hear like TVs, I can't hear people talking. It's relatively quiet, so that's another important thing to make sure you look out for if you're looking at loft buildings, because some of them are very bad. My last must-haves was I did not want to be on a first floor. I will never live in an apartment on a first floor. As long as I'm living alone, I won't live in a walk-up, I won't live in a garden unit, and I won't live anywhere on the first floor. So that was my must-haves list. An ideal list, these were not deal breakers, but obviously I was looking for them when I was looking for a unit. Updated kitchen and appliances. Obviously when you're buying a place, if you don't have those updated appliances, at least, obviously the updated kitchen's not as like prominent, but if you don't have updated appliances, there's a chance that you might have to replace those. So making sure that things were actually updated and in good condition when I was looking at places was something that was on my ideal list, just so that I knew I wouldn't be replacing things within like the first few years of living there. I did want something that was at least bigger than 700 square feet. My last apartment was 800, so I wanted to make sure I was upgrading in space. And most one bedrooms that I looked at for condos specifically were over 700 square feet. There was a lot of them, like they'd be one bedrooms and they'd be 1,200 square feet. So I didn't think that that was super hard to find for a one bedroom. I liked tall ceilings. Obviously that's not a must have, it's not a deal breaker, but it's ideal. I think these are either 12 or 14 feet in this building. and it just makes it feel so much bigger, especially when you're living in a smaller space. And another ideal thing would be I didn't want my windows looking directly into another building. A lot of the ones that I toured, you could see directly into units. I could see into their unit, so obviously they could see into my unit, and I just didn't want to be facing another building, one, so that people weren't looking into my unit, and two, so there's more sunlight. So that was what I was looking for when I was touring condos. My next video is actually going to be the specific condos that I did tour. I went on 7 tours, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk through all of those tours with you guys and show you guys around the places that I toured before choosing this one. So that will be my next video. If you are interested in that, please subscribe. I am trying to hit 10,000 subscribers here. I would love if you join this journey with me, and if you have any questions specifically about buying a condo, living in Chicago, or anything else that I mentioned in this video, please leave me a comment, and I will see you guys in my next video.